Good afternoon, everybody. How are we all doing? And quick cut of screen so we can see each other and see me. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another episode of CAD Class. And this week I'm joined by Dick Crabb, as always, and Tom White. And gentlemen, say hellos.
Good morning. It's Tom here. I'm looking forward to a fantastic session of sound-related discussion today.
Good morning, everybody. So those who watch us regularly know that I managed to get out of stuff last week because Willis I thought was so interesting. I thought we were doing so well. But I am going to try and shed a little light on the kinds of things that I've been picking up out of the CAD classes.
Absolutely brilliant. And as Dick said, he managed to get out of talking about anything last week and just encouraged Willis, Tom and I to talk. So it is his penance this week. But we thought we'd start another subject very briefly and maybe come back to a bit more about price points on different bits of software and what you get and what you don't get. And Tom is being very kindly just creating a list we can talk about of products and prices. So Tom, if I hand over to you.
Fantastic. I'm just doing my last little bit.
Last little bit. Do you want to talk a little bit more?
It's fine. We can fill the rest out ourselves. If I share my screen, and I'm going to share my entire screen like so. So one thing that can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic. So one thing we've been discussing over the last few months is different file formats, I suppose, but also more importantly, software types. And we might suddenly mention a brand new piece of software, and maybe we don't go into enough detail to describe what it is. But we thought it would just be nice to come up with this really, really basic spreadsheet to kind of describe what the file, the software types we've been using. So if I just highlight these, and we have been using this software, and we've been using this software, and we tiny bit of using this software. So if we talk about the ones in yellow first, often, maybe not now, but maybe a few years ago, if you were talking about a CAD software, you might well have been, rather than mentioning AutoCAD specifically, you might have been implying that you're using an AutoCAD or an Autodesk made program. And as the years have gone past, that has changed significantly. So one thing that Dick has been mentioning quite frequently is a program called Draftsight. Dick, can you remember why you came across Draftsight, or if somebody sent it your way?
Originally, Draftsight was free, is the honest answer. So I had, quite honestly, like many in our industry, had a hooky copy of AutoCAD. And Draftsight, until 18 months ago, was free. And when they started charging for it, as you can see, 80 quid for a year, it was to me a no-brainer. And I hadn't realized that the pro version is actually not that much more, and it unlocks quite a lot of the things that I've been missing. So I might actually splurge up and go for it.
So I just took that from the website, and as far as I'm aware, these prices include VAT. So obviously, if you're VAT registered, that's it's currently it's 20% off. And do you have any background knowledge of it? Do you understand where it came from, or why it came about, the actual Draftsight program?
No.
It's from Dxf Systems, who created it, and I'm going to totally fail to remember. I did this the other week on CAD Class. It comes from a bigger program.
Solidworks,
that's the one. So it comes from Solidworks. So it's the baby of Solidworks to give you access to Dxf Systems' way of doing CAD. And I presume it was originally done with the hope that you then buy up into Solidworks,
it's a fantastic way of making you go up the ladder, isn't it? Because I'm at a guess, I presume that's why AutoCAD LT is available, because in the same manner as you might have some features, Dick, that aren't available on Draftsight Standard, you might then go to Professional or Premium. And in the same way, if you have LT, there's a potential one day you might go to the full AutoCAD.
Yeah, I think we should just mention Solidworks. I know it hasn't gone on our list. I think between us, we don't really know Solidworks. I do know a couple of people who use it. John Carr's production manager uses it. And as Tom so beautifully showed last week about unfolding materials, SolidWorks is a lot more manufacturing-based program. That's where it came from. And you can unfold and you can send stuff to CNC, from what I understand. If you're in that side, if you're watching this and you're in that side more of construction, it's definitely worth a look at. The times I've seen John using it is incredible. And you can also run test fittings on it as well, and you can animate things to see if it will actually work in the model before you go into manufacturing. So
yeah. And Dom, I don't know if you'd agree, but one other thing it would be interesting to mention is that, so you have all these different titles, and AutoCAD and LT work on both PC and Mac. I'm fairly certain that's the case with Vectorworks. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Right. PC and Mac. Yeah.
And Draftsight, is that PC and Mac?
Yes, it's both. Yep.
I'm almost positive now. Yeah, I'm almost positive that Rhino is now PC and Mac. It's only recently, or relatively recently, Mac, and SketchUp is either online or PC or Mac, depending on what you pay for. And so they've only just changed it to a subscription model in the last 6 weeks or so. And it seems, actually, we were talking just before the call, Dom, and it sounds like, visually, it looks quite a nice price, doesn't it?
It is, yeah. I think it's somewhere around about £130 or something for a year, which is, for 3D modelling to stand alone, is a crazily good price.
And so I just put this box on the right hand side about file formats, because you see, so the word DWG is mentioned a few times, but then suddenly you get a different file format. It doesn't actually matter. Would you agree, Dom, that within the last 3 to 5 years, it doesn't matter too much, because almost every program can import and export different file formats. So a VWX for Vectorworks, it doesn't matter, it's saved in that, and nonetheless Dom and I can still work together with AutoCAD and Vectorworks without an issue.
Well, we've proven that within CAD class between all three, that the original Harry Theatre, as Stick calls it, did for my son, that's been going backwards and forwards between us and Willis, and it's travelling quite happily. It just happened to be created in Vectorworks to start off with. What I should also say, with Vectorworks Spotlight, there's various versions of Vectorworks, just like AutoCAD. And so Autodesk, as Tom mentioned, is the parent company. AutoCAD is one of their products. They now have many, many products. Vectorworks is exactly the same. Vectorworks is the CAD program. Spotlight is the version of it that relates to our industry and has all the truss and staging and things like that in it. There's also Landscape Fundamentals, which is the very basic version of it, and Architecture, which is for those who do buildings. The prices Tom's got here are the first buy prices. Vectorworks then goes on to an annual subscription, which is pretty much about half that price. It's about £600 a year. And they call it the VSS, so Vectorworks Service Select. And if anyone's considering buying, I really would recommend having Service Select. So you just get continuous updates. You pay I think mine was £600 or something a year. You pay £600 a year. You're always on the latest version. The biggest advantage is you get a phone number. And in the UK, it's in Newbury. And you phone up and they pick up the phone. And if you've got a problem, you send them a file and they will try their best, usually very well, pretty much straight away, to sort it out. And then you just pay that every year, and off you go.
Yeah, that's how I used to pay for my AutoCAD, but in the last 6 months or so, they've taken that away. You're not allowed to buy a perpetual license anymore, I believe. And I used to have a subscription, a maintenance, I think it used to be called maintenance plan or something, and it was so incredibly cost effective. So the buy price might have been £4,000, but the yearly price was maybe kind of between £400 and £500.
Yeah, which is nothing compared to paying the 240 odd quid a month we're paying now. So,
and obviously the choice is yours. So you can see by this that within reason, the Vectorworks and AutoCAD are vaguely similar prices ish. And I don't know, if you looked at AutoCAD LT and Draftsight Premium, they're vaguely similar prices. So you can, I think, to a certain extent, you can compare the two. If 3D modeling, SketchUp is just unbelievable. One reason it's so good is there is a library that you can select a table or a lamp or a computer. So therefore, you can really quickly model something up very, very quickly.
The 3D warehouse, I think it's called, is absolutely incredible, and lots of people, furniture manufacturers, have put in their whole catalogues they've used to build. And so if you're building experiential space, you can literally go and find the furniture people have specified and put the actual item in from the 3D warehouse free of charge. I think the one thing saying these is that AutoCAD Lite and Draftsight Standard will give you really good 2D drawing. You'll be in the production workflow very, very happily. If the production workflow goes to 3D, you're going to need to step up to something else. But I don't think that's necessary for everybody. I think quite a lot of people can live in the 2D world and see what's going on very happily. So I think possibly Dick can answer that more than anyone else.
Yeah, I think that for the amount of time that I use it for the kinds of things that I use it for, what I'm doing, the standard or maybe the professional, I need to look and see what that extra is going to give me. Does perfectly well, and it seems to integrate back to Tom and Dominic very well, and get me a clean sheet and get the information across, which is what we're actually trying to do.
And I don't know if either of you'd agree, but I think if I was a person who was producing ground plans like we talked about 3 weeks ago, about 30 ground plans, and the majority of the work was done in 2D, I would be very, very happy to have AutoCAD LT. And then if I was working with someone who does 3D drawing sometimes and all I need to view, I think I would consider paying for AutoCAD LT in conjunction with SketchUp Pro.
Yes, yeah.
Because it's so visually pleasing at a click of a button, and I'm sure it's the same with Vectorworks, but items drawn in 3D in AutoCAD open up in SketchUp Pro. You don't need an intermediate software. You literally open a DWG in SketchUp and it opens, and you can spin around really easily. So yeah, I think I would consider something like that. And you can see from this price point, those two combined is significantly less than the AutoCAD on its own. The full AutoCAD on its own.
Yeah. And I think also, as you mentioned, AutoCAD have changed their model, and everyone seems to be changing their model. A lot of these programs you can just dip in and out of. So if you have a project on and you own AutoCAD LT, and that's what you use for 9 months a year, but for 3 months a year on a massive project, and you want to step up, you can just step up that to £234 a month and have full-blown AutoCAD for 3 months, and then just cancel at the end of it. And they have a very good user interface, which I use, and you just turn on and off what product you want for those months. So you don't have to go and spend the big cash and buy it out. The subscription model does work very well for people. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah. So hopefully that's helpful. Because we've mentioned most of this software, haven't we? And
yes,
it just would be useful to see the price points.
Yeah, and hopefully that helps people understand a bit more. So, Dick, your time has come. You've had a whole week to prepare after sandbagging us last week. So Dick is going to come back to us to talk about the sound work he's been doing. And there's lots been going on in the background. He's been telling us over the last couple of weeks. So very much looking forward to see how he's joined up the learnings he's had from us and from Sharon, and what we can get. And hopefully this will help all sound types out there. And I think this will also help other people with workflow and exporting out of CAD. So.
Fantastic. So here is Harry's Theatre. I've imported Dominic's raw drawing. I've XREF'd it in. I've flipped the orientation and moved the origin because I'm going to show how it works with Array Cut, which is D&B's loudspeaker program. L-Acoustics have another one. I've put myself a little note here so I'm using this as my 00 reference downstage center, and the coordinates, how to drop it back into Dominic's original drawing. I've put in some various points here around the place. These are blocks. So this is an idea that Sharon showed us a couple of weeks ago about coordinate blocks. And you can drop them in to produce yourself.
So Dick, just because we talked about it, how did you get those blocks working in the end? Because I remember at one point we got to a point where we kind of got them working, but they weren't working smoothly. Did you have to do more to them, or
the the version of Draftsight that I have doesn't support the kind of blocks the dynamic blocks that Dominic had, but I found a little command which will tell you the points, the coordinates of the last point that you used. So I'm going to drop this block in this bottom corner. You can see here is the same real-time coordinate information. I can't get it to reduce the tolerances down to anything sensible. And because it's only logging the last point that you used, if you close the program and reopen it, it seems to forget it. So I'm going to go in and manually override the coordinates. Minus 20 point, minus 28.30. I then created a little label, which I think looking at Sharon's spreadsheet in the background might be quite useful for reminding yourself what it is. And the way, when we look at it, the way ArrayCalc works is it creates a series of planes that it's then going to model the sound on. So I'm going to call this block 1, and it works in a clockwise fashion as to the points that it uses. So I've now created a block with the attributes. So it's going to be in ArrayCalc block 1, it's going to be 0.4, the name, stall seats, just to remind me, and the coordinates. So I'm then going to pull, I know it's zoom extents, I'm just not quick enough. And I'm going to do the @out command, which Draftsight actually calls block attribute output, but it happily takes the AutoCAD command just the same. It's got quite a lot of shortcuts. I'm not going to specify the entities. There we go. It's found them. And we're going to export it to a CSV file.
And this is pretty much the same workflow you'd see in AutoCAD for those doing it in AutoCAD.
I'm then going to go into Excel. Rather than directly open it, which we could do, I'm going to do data from text to a CSV. And there we go. And it'll have a little think. This is a slightly slow process whilst it goes through. And again, rather than directly import it, I'm going to ask it to do what's called a power query, transform data. And this will then open its next thinking box. Very soon you can see all of the raw data as it's bringing it in. So one of the first things that's nice, use first row as headers. And we can split the XY into 2 separate columns. It's going to take that comma separator slowly.
And this is standard Excel you're using here, is it?
It is standard Excel, yeah.
So this is all available to people with Excel.
Yeah. And we can just rename the columns. So again, this I think would be quite useful for Sharon. And we're going to close it, save it, close it, and it will pop up. Now it's popping up as a whole series of data in columns, which you can then filter. So I was talking about how ArrayCalc works in blocks. So you can then see, I've got 4 of them. I've got 2 number 4s somehow.
Would you mind just zooming your Excel spreadsheet just so people can see a little bit more on the feed?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
There we go. And get rid of that. Yeah. Somehow I managed to.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
2 number 4s. which looks very odd. Let's go to one that I pre-prepared earlier. Never do live demos. It's always going to end badly. Why has that one only got 3 points? There we go. So that's the 4 points of a block that's going to be the rake stalls at the back. Then going
so talking to everyone through this, so what's one of the ways the Excel, the block has outputted all the data Dick has put in. And this is where Tom and I possibly rewind to a couple of weeks ago where we talked about it's really important to put good readable information into your blocks and name your blocks in a way that everyone understands. Because once you've exported this, and in lighting terms, we do this, and you maybe got 300 or 400 lights in a rig, and you want to start filtering and understanding it, the information you put into your blocks will help you hugely. And it's wonderful just to see this pull out of Dick's sound, and he knows exactly where that point is, what it's going to be used for.
Yeah, it's just I had a couple. So the reason for doing the export is you then got much more simple data that when you come into array calc so you can pull in, you can just create a block as simple as that, but it knows nothing. It doesn't know where it wants to be. You can either drag it and drop it, or more usefully, you can, and it works in meters scale. You can enter the numbers in directly. You can either do it. So I was talking about the P1, 2, 3, and 4. You can enter those numbers in directly. And you can see it's
starting to morph. Yeah.
It's starting to morph as you go along. You could do it as widths, but here the stalls are not symmetrical, so it's easier to plunk, but you get the picture. Yeah. Anyway, one of the other ways. So I briefly showed quite a long time ago. The Athens basketball arena, which was a big, complex stadium. One of the things that array calc does is it will do as an export. Again, it's going to be another CSV.
And array calc's free of charge for the sound people.
Array calc
this is something they can very easily get into with minimum spend on a CAD program and downloading array calc.
And what I found, so here is what it actually looks like. This is exporting as a CSV, and you can see those numbers, the X, Y, and Z coordinates are all in there. And I found, and you can then just manually change them here. So let's pick one. Let's just change this one. We'll save it back. So you can manually do that, and then so with the basketball arena, I found it was much easier to I've just overwritten it. Don't do things live.
But you can bring it back in, so you can go in and edit in the text editor, a bit like the Excel sheet, and then drag it back into array calc. Yeah,
exactly.
And Dick, I don't know if some people remember a few weeks ago when we were doing the stage layout, the markout in AutoCAD. When I type in something like 0,0, that's the same as it. Basically, it's just doing exactly what Dick had on the screen just then. So it's going X 0 and Y 0. So you could in theory type in any measurement, and that's what it does. And I think AutoCAD a very, very, very long time ago was all like that. And Dom, I don't know if you agree, but
yes, it was. Yeah. When you first started drawing all those years ago, it was all straight input. I think one thing Dick has mentioned to me, I don't think he said it today, was just understanding how ArrayCalc understands its X and Y, slightly different from AutoCAD. So if you were going into ArrayCalc, you just need to adjust your X, Y round 90 degrees. But that's something we've talked about and should be easy enough to do in and out of the program.
Yeah, exactly. So this is just the stalls of Harry's Theatre, and literally that is it's one I prepared earlier where you just change the coordinates. You can either do it down here in a slightly long-winded way because some of these the front and the width, the overall front and width, tend to override the X, Y, and Zs. So I found it was much easier to go on a complex one to go into a text editor. You could then get complete control over changing the values and you can import it back in.
So in theory, you could very easily go and put a load of blocks in to your ArrayCalc just to get you going, export into the text editor, go through, put all your details in. Exactly. Which is exactly the same as the out of the CAD programs. You're just using a text editor and not an Excel-based program or a spreadsheet, and then just drag it back in again, and they're all in position.
Yeah, exactly that.
That's powerful. Yeah.
To me, it's much easier than dragging stuff around here. Yes, you can do it, but odd things happen that are not necessarily intuitive.
And what's interesting, it obviously understands the Z height as well for each individual point. So
it does, yeah. So, and we're just going to load up. So this is taking it to the extreme. This is Harry's Theatre with the loudspeakers in. I'm not going to try and preview it from here because it will crash. This is where the graphics doesn't like it, but you can see there's the pros. So here's the stalls floor, stalls rake at the back, the first balcony, the second balcony, and let's just briefly, we're just going to stop sharing it. I'm going to share it from
Switch machines.
Switch machines.
While you're doing that, can I ask you a question? So
yeah,
I suppose I can ask Dom as well. So in Harry's Theatre, Dom, do you have an opinion on what would be the best cluster of seats? Like, for example, when it was thought about, was it designed to have the best seats in the stalls or on the balcony? And then I suppose the question to Dick is, are you able to tell from an audio point of view, if Dom says the stalls are definitely the best seat, and you can say, oh, actually, would you mind to reallocate them to the balcony or something like that? Because the audio is better in the balcony.
If I've done my job properly, it should be the same everywhere.
Okay. So Dick, you would aim to have consistent, good quality on all seats.
Yes, Harry's Theatre is from a sound perspective. I think the first time I talked about it, I said I really wouldn't want to do a show there. It's very, very wide relative to its depth, which means that you can't put loudspeakers where you want them. But in a normal theatre, with this kind of programming, you ought to be able to get extremely good coverage everywhere. There will obviously be some seats when you're right out at the extremes where there's no stereo imaging, everything is coming from an odd place, and you'll get different balance of live to what's coming off the stage to the reinforcement. But no, you really should these days be able to get extremely consistent sound across the venue, and this is the kind of thing that this program is trying to demonstrate. It's only a little screen, so I'm afraid I can't make it any bigger.
It's all good here.
But and these are all of the elements, and you can see all the elements, the loudspeakers in their positions. This is the kind of coverage. So you can see I've quite deliberately down the sides where the aisles are, you're stopping it from hitting the walls. Walls are reflective, so it's quite nice. In the coverage drops quite quickly off and stops things hitting the walls. I've got little under balcony delays and things. And what we can do from here is you can do an export of the. So you can do a Dxf export, all sources. And I'm going to stop there because we're just going to speed the process up. And I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And stop sharing. There we go. I'm going to come back to.
And I suppose, Dick, the process you're doing now is the exporting process. Sorry, I'm thinking of specifically is as we were talking about last week about using Blender. So therefore, you can see in your program what it's meant to look like. But if you export it as a DXF, you can then use Draftsight and say, yeah, this is correct, and then send it on to Dom if you so desire. You obviously you might want to skip that step, but nonetheless, you can do that just as a visual check, just so Dom doesn't come back and say, I've got a speaker hang right in the middle of the stage, and you're like, oh yeah, no, it's meant to be there, rather than the wrong position.
Yeah, exactly. So this is how all of the loudspeakers come back into the loudspeakers are a block. So if I just temporarily unload that. Actually, I put it on a layer. I could have just turned the layer off, couldn't I?
See,
like you showed me. So this is this is all of the loudspeaker sources. So you've got a left, center, right cluster for the line arrays for the upper levels, some smaller arrays for the stalls, some sub bass that are kicking around, balcony pit front fills. I think these are the upper balconies, the lower balconies, and it.
So does it export them into layers? Can you
Yes,
can you
does.
filter out of your Pro?
Yeah. So let's just. It does. So every one of these. The little groups, so the groups of loudspeakers that you create within the program all arrive as their own. Just having a little thing. See, this is why I should have turned the layer off rather than.
Yeah, this is a great example of rewinding a good few weeks to put your XRS on layers, so you can just turn your layers on and off. But what's wonderful about this thing is actually showing Draftsight doing layer and XRF work for everybody.
Yeah,
so I don't think we've showed that before.
Did have an XRF layer. I had done that learning. So yes, you can see. So it's brought. So this is the main. What it's calling the main array is the little center cluster, the left-right arrays, sub arrays, lower balcony, upper balcony, the flying frames, the beams that the arrays hang off. It brings them all in on their own layers. So yes, you can.
That's brilliant.
You can turn them on and off. There we go. Off. On. So that's all lovely. But they exist as individual. So they're slightly. It's useful. It's perfectly formed, but it then. It kind of depends on the workflow of whether, for in this example, in this theatre, I think that the modelling program would be the place that you start to make it sound right, rather than doing it in the CAD. I think this would be how I would choose to start.
To me, that seems absolutely logical. It's the same way as we start patching and creating patches and things and shows. For lighting, we start in the lighting desk, we patch, we know the details are correct, then we know we're absolutely correct. So in reverse, to me, to start placing your speakers in an array calc and know it's going to work would be the way forward. You know what I mean? It
would be the way forward, and but the alternative. So here is the same thing. Using blocks that I created, symbols for each loudspeakers that I've created. And we're back to the I can then give them attributes, which I can't with the D&B exported version. So it's back to the workflow, and this is, where Vectorworks gives you the best of both worlds, doesn't it? What you were talking about, you can do with the lights. You can put the lights in and know.
It's a 2D and a 3D symbol, and we can attach information to it and choose what we display.
So this is.
So how did you go about that workflow? Do you literally have to start again, or can you block replace with the array calc speakers?
With my version, I can't block replace. It's one of the few things that is really annoying, and maybe I will do the update. But what you can do is you can take that same information of where the loudspeaker is. So here is it modeled exactly the same, but we're now using my symbols instead. Which means that I can give it these block attributes, and they're the same 3D symbols. And I discovered that having started to make my own blocks, I realized that you can export them a single loudspeaker from array calc, and it gives you a much nicer
block, and saves you having to do the geometry yourself. There's
exactly that. Point. So,
brilliant learning tip.
So that's yes. So I've then started to redo them. But what then here? So same block attributes out, and I've briefly shown you this before. That one. So let's do a zoom again so you can see a little better. So this is Harry's Theatre. This is, so we've got pans and tilts, so for a lot of sound people, because you're putting the loudspeaker on a truss, you're then flying the truss. If you know because I'm working in 3D, I know the pan and tilt.
Wow, that's a real. So you could pre-tilt instead of us lighting folk having to drive you guys around in a picker, or you shout to us as we pass it, focusing lights, going, "Can you just tilt it a bit?" You could put this on the speaker with a.
You can put it on. So here, what I've done is, and again, because Draftsight Ordinary doesn't have the beautiful dynamic blocks that you do. So what I've done is created the loudspeaker as one symbol and its flying frame as another, with the same origin. So the top of the hook clamp is in line with the bottom of the truss. Both parts of this drawing have the same origin, so that the flying frame and the loudspeaker marry up. But what I can now do is I can rotate the loudspeaker within its
frame.
Within its frame.
This is brilliant, Dick. Yeah.
And I can go, okay, where do I want it to be? And I've done some nominal coverage angles.
I think, Dom, I don't know about you. I would probably do, even though I do have access to dynamic blocks, I probably would do the same as Dick's done. I think using the same origin, I think it's a wonderful way of dealing with this and bringing it in and doing it. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic.
It does seem to work for me. And so you bring them in once at a known location, put the frame onto the loudspeaker, and then the workflow that I've been doing is you put the first loudspeaker in the place that you want it to go, decide its pan and tilt, and then you either copy it or you use the pattern control and get the computer to put them where you want them, and that does give me that ability that to see it in the dimensions and to be able to reasonably accurately say, I think, the combination of the plan and experience that says, here's the angle of tilt, the angle of pan that you want, which you can then. I'm not sure that I can find that drawing that I showed a couple of weeks ago with the rigging information and the pan and tilt that came from the Excel spreadsheet.
While you're looking, I think one of the amazing things about this and working in 3D space, and again, this is us saying the step up to 3D is amazing, that you and I very regularly share in design and real life trust space. And I'm looking to get a moving light near a speaker, and you're trying to, and we're also, you don't want to block your speaker and I don't want to block it and have to move the light to actually show how far I need to move that light off the edge of the speaker so I'm not affecting the nominal array or the nominal spread of the speaker itself. Is fantastic to be able to create a truss, you populate it, I populate it, then we turn on your nominal coverage. Sorry, Dick, I'm clipping you a bit there, I'll move 10 centimetres to the right. Is absolutely powerful, wonderful thing that we hope you then don't have to go back up again. And just before we fly, you can do a spirit level or whatever, an angled level, and go along and check it all. We fly and we're hopefully good to go. Yeah,
and I think that kind of thing, you got to think about. So on Gartner, all of our main rooms, all the loudspeakers are flown.
Yeah.
So to be able to give that kind of information out is, I think, is a very strong thing. And then the final part of the process would be, so I now know that here's the points relative to Dominic's origin and Harry's theatre. Here's my array calc origin. So that block that I showed you, the export, I can then just relocate that back, spin it and send it to Dominic, and it will drop in as an XREF into his Vectorworks AutoCAD plan.
Yeah. Anybody in production, it'll just travel. Yeah. Anyway, but I think also just looking at thinking in the theatre, and it's a long time since I did a lot of work in the theatre, but I remember the great bounce focus on the front of the house truss, and actually for you guys where you can't get to it to focus it in real life, to be able to put the angles on the speakers and apply the truss to the known height and not have to worry about that wonderful bounce focus situation is good for everybody.
Yes, I'm just going to see if I can. I should have. See if I can find.
While you're looking, do you want me to just quickly show you people what it looks like in Vectorworks, just so we can?
Yes, let's
show the whole workflow. So, very, very quickly, switch screens, share now. That one there, share. So I showed this the other week, but this shows the complete journey. Hopefully, so this is exactly what you've just seen from Dick. His outputted plan, just brought in to my drawing, and these are his speakers, and it's all sitting in 3D space quite happily, which we can then deal with. We can then do that, and we actually select it, and we can come in. 2D minuses, and then you've got all the detail there, and then we can put some of the metalwork on top and things. So, oops, and I've got a low battery on my 3D mouse. That's why it's not very happy. Something we should possibly very quickly talk about at the end is 3D mouse. I'll stop sharing, let Dick carry on, but that just proves the whole workflow. While you're looking for it, I don't know how many people have got one of these yet. I don't know if Tom has one of these. This is something I've been getting to learn to use a lot more in recent life. It's 3D Connections, 3D mouse. And if you are going to work in 3D a lot of the time, this helps life an awful lot with the gimbal on the top and various keypads. This is the middle of the range one. You can get a very small portable one to travel with, and you get a very flashy one with LCD displays on the top. But well worth a consideration if that's your workflow on a regular basis. I tend to have keyboard in the middle and two mouse, one left hand, one right hand. So.
That's interesting to know, Dom. Actually, I go for the cheapest mouse possible because it goes wrong anywhere in the world. And I can buy this. I think this is from Carrefour in Barcelona.
I have to say, on the right hand, there is a mouse, and actually, that's a wireless one. But for anybody, you don't need an expensive mouse in your right hand or left hand for for general CAD, actually a good old standard €8.99 or €8 Microsoft mouse on the end of a USB cable will give you absolutely everything you need, and no regrets when it disappears from your bag.
I know. I think this one I had to purchase because I was trying to do a SketchUp file on the flight over of a staircase, and the middle wheel decided to break on the flight. And I don't know if you ever tried to use SketchUp without doing a pan. I think it's next to impossible. So
yeah, try using any program without having a middle wheel. So and the 3D mouse is great. It's great for the 3D things. It stays at home, doesn't go anywhere with me, but it helps speed.
So this is what I think is my new future of this is a PDF because I can't find the CAD of a layer. What's it called? The model, not the model space.
Layout space.
Layout space with the overall room drawing, a close up of loudspeakers on the truss with the dimensions, and this is the Excel sheet, the block attributes out, and you can import that directly into the paper space so that it's real time. Every time you open it, it goes back, looks, make sure that you've not made any changes. And that can be printed as an A4 to give to the rigging crew.
It's such an incredibly nice drawing. I seem to remember maybe it might have even been my first week, which I think was episode 4, that we talked about this. How you can, how I think we went through the process of producing a layout, and I think we both agreed that your layout's really, really fantastic because it tells a story, and once you know the steps, it's relatively easy to do.
It is, yes.
People like me might be able to rig speakers from that.
And I am still sharing, aren't I? I'm just going back and one last thing. And
I think we talked about the benefits of producing an A4 or A3 or A1 layout is that you can replicate the drawing in an identical manner every time. In comparison, you print from model space, which is there's no problem whatsoever printing in model space, but it's quite challenging to repeat the process. So if I sent it over to Dom and Dom said move the light, trying to replicate exactly the same PDF print for him a second time from model space is a bit tricky. So it's often easy to do a A3 or A4 layout.
Yeah. So, and one of the other, can't freeze the active layer. No, I'm going to keep that one on because it's. Why do I keep making that mistake?
Think you so need to upgrade to the next one, don't you?
I'm going to turn off that one and that
layer states, all the rest of it.
So this is the heat map of loudspeaker coverage. So D&B's array calc, it will allow you to export them as a PNG, which you then stick them into Paint, turn them into a JPEG, crop them down, and a little bit of messing around with scaling, and you can drop them back in. That is an image that is XREF'd into the plan, and it sits there as its own little layer. You can, so back very, 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 I was talking about a job that I would have done in, I think, April, where I knew all of my gut instincts. I knew the room, I knew the client, and you look at the CAD and go, this is going to be, because of how we're going to have to stage it, I'm going to have problems. And overlaying the heat map on, and suddenly you could see, so loudspeakers, they have a nominal coverage of where the sound's going to go, but it depends upon the frequency, and the lower the frequency, the more that the coverage just becomes omnidirectional. So I could produce a heat map that showed that low mids, the kind of fundamentals of the human voice, would just swamp all over the stage. You had to use dual lines. And it created a really powerful, strong message, I think, that shows you what you genuinely think is going to happen. And so that is literally, it is just a JPEG that I've done a bit of rotation on to make it follow the line of the seats, the elevation of the seats, and put it on there, and it works.
I think it's absolutely fascinating because what you're showing is us what we do in lighting, where we can try and predict what the lux level will be at a certain point and how a beam will react to a piece of architecture or to a stage or a surface. But I've never seen this before, this ability to, obviously the ArrayCalc program creates this heat map, but to then put that into our show and have discussions with producers and so forth about placing of people and how best practice would be is absolutely wonderful. It's so powerful. And going all the way back to the beginning, having all that wrapped up in one CAD file that we can all share.
It's and it, to me, it's the fact that I can then show it to a producer or one of the production managers who's slightly less sound aware, or indeed to Tom, and go, here's why, here's what's going to happen. And you then enter into the discussion with a much more concrete starting point as to, okay, well, what happens if we allow you to put loudspeakers here or there instead? If I move that seating block a couple of meters that way, okay, suddenly things start to work. And I think it's the clarity of message, the simplicity of the message. In one of our lefts, Naomi Venables was talking about simplicity of messages, and different people take information in different ways, and the kinds of people who tend to be the top of our food chain, creatives, they want a very simple, quick message so they can make a simple, quick decision, and we can all move on. And I think this helps that kind of work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Dick, that's absolutely fantastic. I feel very proud that Tom and I have got you so far to the fact that we're going to have to force you to buy some more CAD software. I think we've achieved there.
Well, I think, going back to where we started this morning and this is from £79 a year.
Yeah.
You can do this much. Yes, okay, you and Tom, because of the nature of what you do, need the bigger, more expensive programs. But people like me, there's workarounds.
It is, as you say, for £79 a year, you're off and integrated to the full CAD team. I think sometimes people feel it's too hard to get into a CAD program to be part of that team just to have a look. And it's not. I think, if anything, this whole series has proved that anyone can get into it at a really good price entry point and be part of the conversation. And,
yes. And, if you go back to week 3, where the first one that I arrived in, of going, all I want to do is not get told off by Dominic or John Cars or Tom, one of the CAD gurus, when I submit my layer. I don't want to get told off because it's a mess.
Yeah. From it. Brilliant. I need to run away very soon, I'm afraid, everybody. And
yes, you've
thank
got
you very
work.
much. Yes, I've got work. I've got your meeting. Yes, thank you very much, Dick. Very, very informative, and hopefully that helps the sound community. And just rewinding, the @out command and the @in command works for every department of extracting data and putting data back in.
It doesn't work in Draftsight. @out does, but @in doesn't. And I don't think it works on any of their. Don't think it works on the professional either, unfortunately. Okay. But hey,
just extracting data is a good start. So
it's an enormous start. I mean, that one thing alone, out of everything that I've learned from these classes, the data extraction, and be able to turn it into a spreadsheet that I can then add to the rest of the information and get it all in one place is fantastic.
Brilliant. So goodbyes from this week. And another week of great documentation for you to do and what we talked about. As always, anyone wants us to talk about anything in particular, do give us a shout. You can find us on the usual social media channels.
And we'll figure out a way. I've been indexing things. We will find a way of trying to. I'll put them on the comments on the YouTube clips and just put the index document. We just need to figure out where to put the actual document itself. But it's all there, and we will get it to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, all. See you all soon. Look after yourselves.
Thank you.
Keep well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.